Hello, innovators. I'm Todd Wyant, and welcome to the Bridging the Gap podcast presented by Applied Software GRAITEC Group. You're invited to join our conversation to model the future of construction innovation and the digital transformation adventure of this great industry. My guest today is Adrian Mangan. He's a seasoned professional with over 14 years of experience as an ironworker and foreman in New York City. After a solid foundation in carpentry and AutoCAD in Ireland, Adrian is now advancing in steel detailing, 3D modeling, and BIM. I'd love to start by getting kind of how you got into the industry to begin with.
Hello, Todd. Nice to chat. I came to America in 2001 and I got a job as a laborer with Ironworkers originally and spent a couple of years there. I have a previous background in technical drawing from school, so pencil work. But when I left school, my thought was I was either doing woodwork or I was going to do something architectural. So that kind of I picked a course. I did a course. It was kind of did both, but neither. So I was kind of left unsatisfied there. And I did AutoCAD. I think release 13 was my first back in 95 or something like that. So anyway, I had a background in drawing and an interest for years. And so I guess I was an iron worker in the city here in New York for around 15, 16 years. And I showed an interest in, I always wanted to read the prints. I'd always be next to the foreman and eyeing him that, I want to know what's going on. I don't want to just move this from here to here. So I had an interest in the drawings from the start. As it went along, I was a foreman maybe for 10 or 12 of those years for most of my time as an iron worker. And we did all sorts of jobs, stairs, a lot of retrofit stuff in the city. I've done some big penthouses on the top of buildings, like add-ons. Some buildings from the ground, not too many, but mostly like 3-4 story buildings, a couple of those in the city. And in the end, I was doing a lot of the retrofit works. The companies that I would work, their in-house detailers would do like the bigger jobs. And then they would shop out the drawings for like the smaller jobs, ones I would have been doing. And, stairs and smaller buildings. And a lot of the drawings were done foreign. Not that there was anything wrong with the drawings, just the communication was always an issue. Where the companies in those countries, they just want the drawings and they want to produce drawings. They don't want to be talking on the phone trying to figure out what size you need or does the stairs need to be moved over. So there was a lot of problems with stairs in particular being wrong and fabricating stairs on site, which was kind of fun also, but a pain at the time. But when you look back, it was all a learning experience. So
yeah.
So I kind of saw the need for, around here at least, not to actually work for anyone direct, but when people have extra work for them to shop it, out to somebody local that can help them out and who has a lot of structural and miscellaneous experience on site.
Very cool. Very cool. So I know you've started a YouTube channel focused really on advanced steel. I'd love to hear your journey and kind of creating that YouTube channel. What motivated you to start sharing your thoughts and knowledge around advanced steel?
Yeah. And well, so to be honest, when we had my daughter, my wife took a year off. I had been studying for probably around 3 years. At that time, when I started to study, I thought I had to use AutoCAD. And then I was like, oh, there's all these other softwares that already have, I thought I was going to have to create libraries of sections. And then quickly realized, oh, I don't have to do that. But then also quickly realized that the software is very deep and there's a lot of learning. It's a pretty steep learning curve. So I was learning every morning, every lunchtime, and the evenings. I'd have obviously go to the city every day. I'd have like at least an hour and a half on a train in and out. There's a couple hours studying at nighttime, and I felt like I was fairly proficient, and I already understood detailing to a certain extent because of my use of drawings on site. So I kind of had the detailing thing half figured out, and the software seemed to be my biggest climb. But I think when I started, I felt like I was fairly proficient. But looking back, I wasn't really, to be honest with you. and I'm still trying to learn the software, but it's been a good journey. And while I started that journey, I started to write down, because there were so many things to learn. I couldn't remember. I might have to change a setting, and then 2 weeks later, I have to change that setting, and I have no idea what it was. I can't remember. So I would write it down, and then went from writing it down to, I said, well, if I just record it while I'm doing it, I don't have to write it down. So I started recording it while I was doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was saving those videos, and then I was getting a lot of those videos. So I said to my wife, I'm just going to put them on YouTube, but not share them. They'll be private videos. So I did that, and then she's like, well, why don't you share them? Somebody else might want to use them. So then I just started. So all my videos, I don't have like a plan laid out. I just literally get to something and I go, this is pretty interesting. If I was back 6 years ago, I would like to learn this.
Mm.
So that's kind of where it all came about. So,
Yeah.
there's I get some good feedback. I also get some people criticizing, as you do online, but that's okay. That's funny.
Hey, it comes with the territory, haters are
Yeah.
gonna hate.
You know what? I do have people contacting me saying stuff is really helpful, which is good, because I also have to go back and look at some of them videos still. Some of them,
Mhm.
not all of them, but some of them I have to go back and look at them and go, I forgot how to do that, because it was a couple of years ago. You might create all your prototypes and then you don't go back to your prototypes for 5 years. And
Yeah.
then when you go back to fix your sheet, you're like, what did I do that time? So that's kind of where that all came about. So it's been good. I'd like to actually put more time into it, to be honest with you, because my videos are kind of scattered on YouTube. I've like, I don't know, is there 300 videos or something?
Oh well.
But they're all
Yeah.
over. I feel like that would help people out,
Yeah. Well, I love the organic nature that you have kind of developed over it. Since launching all your YouTube videos on your channel, what's the impact that you've seen, maybe for others or for you? And then what's your ultimate goal? You were kind of speaking there just a bit about the kind of the direction where you want
I
to take
guess
it. But
my ultimate goal, really, to be honest with you, is not even like to get work. I have got a couple of jobs probably out of it. It's more making connections, because
Mm.
with me working here in an office on my own, I have a couple of friends. This is a guy's building. He's a fabricator, and he gives me use to this office. And but you're kind of flying solo, and it's good to have other people who are maybe in the same situation or doing similar kind of work.
Sure.
So I kind of can connect with those through my YouTube videos. And to be honest with you, the ultimate goal is there are some really tiny little things in advanced steel that it's hard to find them. And if you put them out there in videos, when I was watching, I used to just watch videos all day long when I was learning. So I would have, if I had all my videos back then, I would have got to where I have to be way faster now, but I would have had them all playing in the background, just one after the other.
Mhm.
And a lot of them would have been boring, and then some of them, and a lot, Autodesk have they have an advanced steel IQ for anyone who's advanced steel guy listening. And those videos are amazing. I mean, Nestor did them, and they were some amazing content for me. But when I watched them first, I was like, I don't even have any idea what he's talking about.
Yeah.
I had to go back a couple of years later and watch them again, and I'm like, oh, now I know how to do this.
Yeah. It
So
clicks
it's a
different.
constant,
For sure. For sure. How do you ensure that software solutions like Advanced Steel are presented really as integral parts of the workflow rather than an afterthought?
Yeah, I mean, like, especially if you're doing like something like a stairs, like I just doing the stairs yesterday, and when I finished the model, I'll always upload it to. I actually defer to the free viewer as opposed to the one that's part of your account. It has a comment section. It seems to be a little better, even though your models only last for 30 days. But I'll always share my models with a QR code on like the front page with the isometric,
Mm.
so they can scan and they can access the model with the through Autodesk's free online viewer, which is really good. And then if I have something like I've just doing the stairs that has a lot of mesh panels, and we're kind of struggling, not struggling as such, but we're trying to move the bottom land into the right place. And then it's got panels, and you can say, let's just divide it up evenly, but then it doesn't look right. It doesn't match with the top one, or something looks wrong. So
Right.
I use Fusion for that. So I'll export my model to Fusion, and I can do a rendering in like a half an hour, and then I can share the model. And that model is amazing. Even on your phone, that model it looks like not a real stairs, but it's pretty close to a real stairs with all the finishes and the wood and everything. So the client then can look at that and go, oh, that's kind of what it's going to look like. That panel kind of looks out of place from here.
Yeah.
Whereas it's kind of hard to do that you can do it from an isometric on a drawing, but when it looks semi-realistic, it makes it a lot easier to make a decision, and it also breaks up my day a little bit, right? I'm using up a half hour that I can't really factor in that I'm getting paid for that. But I mean, you want to provide a better service so that, people appreciate that you go the extra mile for them, and I enjoy doing it too. So
yeah, for sure.
win-win.
So there's so many different technologies out there. Can you describe your approach to assessing and selecting the different technologies for projects?
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of people now are using twin motion as well for renderings. I'm not the biggest fan. It does some great stuff, but I think I just want to see my model, so I always defer to Fusion.
Mm-hmm.
I prefer Fusion. I also will export. So when I bring it into Fusion, the beauty of it is you can then export from Fusion. They give you so many choices of how to export it from Fusion. So I can export to FBX, and then I'll use the Organ app online. I can do augmented reality with that. It's limited if you have the free version to like a certain size. So, I mean, you can also I use Navisworks sometimes if you want to. You can get the FBX direct from Navisworks. So if I just load my DWG model into Navisworks, I can export that straight away into an FBX file and then put that in Twinmotion. Twinmotion is really good. I was using it years ago. I feel like it's maybe not quicker. I don't know. I just prefer Fusion because I also create special parts in Fusion. So I'll have some Tekla users who'll contact me, and I'm not saying Tekla can't do it. It's not. It just happens to be Tekla he's using. But he'll like ask me for a special part or something, and if I can't find it in McMaster Car on Fusion, I can just create it and send it to him in whatever file type he wants. So, and that's just, he helps me out, I help him out with other stuff, So they're kind of what I use on a daily basis. I'd like to use Revit a little bit more because, as we know, as people who use Advanced Steel know, they're trying to put Advanced Steel into Revit. So when that'll happen, nobody knows. But for now, they're not really developing Advanced Steel anymore. But I don't really have a problem with that because right now Advanced Steel is already pretty good. It's good. It's where it's got to be. I actually have a Tekla user who has a lot of Tekla users working for him, and he's curious just to see how Advanced Steel works. Whereas 2 years ago when I met him first, he was like, what is Advanced Steel? He didn't even know what it was. So I think it's getting a little bit more respect not from everybody, obviously, but I feel like you can put it alongside the other softwares. I feel, for big structures, sure, it's probably not as fast as Tekla, but miscellaneous stuff, it's no brainer, really.
Yeah. So how is Advanced Steel, and then kind of leveraging on the GRAITEC PowerPack for Advanced Steel, how's that enhanced your workflow?
Yeah, I mean, the PowerPack is great. I wish I had some more time to get into it, but it does some great things like exploding the model on the click of a button. You can export all your step files, click of a button. Very, very easy. I mean, the PowerPack alone is worth it for that alone. Otherwise, you have to explode it. You lose all the intelligence, and it just doesn't work so good doing it yourself. Other things you can do yourself, like exploding the model to bring it into Fusion, I can do myself pretty quick. But also, there's a lot of stair elements and handrail elements in the PowerPack, which I haven't had fully time to explore. I have had the PowerPack for years, but I haven't fully got to explore it. But I'm kind of the guy, when I'm doing a stairs or a handrail, a lot of times, honestly, it sounds a little backwards. I kind of like to model them in. I do a lot of the, line work, and I like to understand the stairs, and the nosings are all where I need them to be. I'll use the stair macro in Advanced Steel just to get me some of the way, like 50% of the way, and then I'll save that, and then then I'll explode it, and then I'll work the rest myself. And then I kind of know before I get to the drawing stage that everything is right, rather than just relying on the macro. But the macros can be so fast for like multi-stories, really good.
Yeah. Very cool. Thanks for sharing. What's the partnership with GRAITEC? What has that been like for you?
They've always been great, to be honest, yeah. And at the start, I actually bought Advanced Steel from somebody else. I didn't really know the whole GRAITEC story. So I guess it was, to be honest, I looked into Tekla and I could get a 1-year license for Tekla. I was able to get a good student copy to get me to the point where I knew how to use the software. And then when I went out on my own, I purchased the software from a different company. And when I called them for support, they put me through to the Revit guy. And I was like, well, I don't know if you know anymore. He's like, we don't have an Advanced Steel guy. And at this point, I didn't have enough knowledge, so I needed the help. There's a Facebook group, which is very helpful. And the forum, the Autodesk forum, is very helpful. But at the time, I guess I was just new. So somebody I was in touch with in England, actually, he was saying to me, well, try and get it from GRAITEC. They're the ones that created the software. So I went to GRAITEC, and I was dealing with Matthew at the start, who was very good to me, to be fair. And if I had any issues, I would contact him, and he would get me in touch with somebody straight away. The problem with software, though, like Advanced Steel, is they're very tricky, and even if you're using it, like, I feel like some people think like I'm not expert, but somewhere higher than in the middle, let's say. But still, you could ask me a bunch of questions, I wouldn't know the answer to them, so it's, when you become a more advanced user, it's difficult because you can't expect somebody that's even an Advanced Steel expert, because they're not using it every day,
Right.
to get answers from. So, like, GRAITEC is great, and the training is great. Like, I would recommend it. I wish at the time I had have done the training, to be honest with you. But at the time, my wife took a year off work, and I was like, can I pay a couple of $1,000, or can I just stay up every night try and learn this? So I just stayed up every night. But I do tell people I would recommend doing the training and maybe recording the training, or getting a GRAITEC to record it and keep your recording, because you're probably going to learn 20 or 30% of that stuff during your class. It's afterwards, when you have to put it into practice, where you learn. So I would advise doing it, recording it, and then watching it a couple of months later, and a couple of months later, and then watch it 20 times.
Yeah, absolutely.
People always think I'm like selling Advanced Steel. I love it. I think it's brilliant, to be honest, John. I just use Tekla. I had a Tekla license just to, when the whole thing came out about Advanced Steel, they're not worth developing it anymore. People were like jumping off the ledge. They thought it was just going to disappear, So people were kind of worried, and I know a couple of people that switched over. I mean, it was a little faster. I just wanted to use another software to see how I liked it. And I wasn't a big fan, to be honest. That's just me. I'm AutoCAD based, so I guess that's my thing, So I like drawing. I don't like. It's the same, to be honest with you, with Revit. I like Revit, but that type of modeling, it lacks a certain confidence in your accuracy. The way you put in, the way you put in connections and everything in those type of softwares, where you're not. I like to have all my lines in, and I'm snapping to the end of things, and I cut all my system lines. It's a different type of system, so hopefully I won't have to relearn the wheel, or reinvent the wheel, I should say.
So how do you balance all these potential softwares that you could use with really utilizing a full BIM model to kind of transform your projects and elevate your capabilities? How do you work that and balance all that out?
To be honest, I'd like to do more of that stuff, but most of my clients are like based around here, and they're like smaller shops, because I'm one guy. So a lot of them are like literally just give me a handrail assembly, whereas I'm like, you should be taking the step files and the piece details. You need a pipe cutter, take out all that labor out of, or doing all that cutting the pipes. But I mean, I'd like to use more stuff online. I went to the conference last week, And actually, it just reminds me I have to reach out to somebody. But I went to the AGT tour of the Horizon facility, fabricators in Texas, and they were showing you how to export the weld data, but from Tekla. So I was talking to somebody from Autodesk, and he was very curious. So I'm going to try and figure out how I can get the weld data from Advanced Steel. I obviously have to put the welds in a different way, and then there is a button to export them. How well it works, I don't know. There is two companies around here. One of them actually I used to work for, and they have a robot. So I'd like to get into that and try and figure that out. I like to, my dad said to me when I was about 14, he said it's a bad day when you don't learn something new. So I'm trying
Wise
to,
words.
yeah, and I remember that I'd say at least 4 times a week I think of that. And, right now I'm trying to learn to use Bluebeam. Honestly, it's amazing software. Not sure how good it'll be for me as a loan detailer, but I think, but it's fun. It's fun to learn something new, and I'm sure there'll be some benefit to it. I can then show my fabricator friend here, and maybe he can get a benefit out of it.
Yeah, very nice. So communication, the collaboration piece with Bluebeam,
Yeah.
even, that's huge key in any project. How do you bring the different stakeholders together, especially as a one-person shop, to streamline the operations and improve project outcomes?
Well, I get to be honest, like it's mostly sharing the models and communication. It's all about, that stairs yesterday. We had to have a meeting. We were over and back with emails. The problem is when you have a meeting, an online meeting, if you're not recording it, you really need to record everything after the meeting. Or people don't always take the same thing from a conversation, unfortunately. That's not saying, I think it's like a story. There's 3 sides to every story, right? So some person remembers one thing and there's somewhere in the middle lies the truth. So I think it's good to collaborate the models for visuals, and I just think communication is my thing really, because when I talk to people on the phone about projects, they can understand that I understand that this situation is not going to work, or this plate's going to be in the way of this, or if there's a column here, we have to put the beam in on the other side, and just simple things that seem simple to me, but I guess other people don't always pick them up. So I feel like communication is number one, and it's a lot of on phone communication too, not just emailing people over and back. I feel
Yeah.
like the models is a huge thing. Like people, even at the start, people would say, well, I don't really need the isometric on the sheet. But when I was on the job, I would get drawings with no isometric, and I would call them and say, can you give me an isometric sheet? Can I get the front page so I can show the people working with me what they're doing? Because if you have 5 guys working with you, most of those guys aren't great at reading drawings. So I don't want to just go in and say, you go bring that beam over there and put that clip on. I want to just show them and go, well, you're going to be doing this part over here, and then this guy's going to do this part. We're going to join it together. And, again, communication, because I worked with some foremen in the past and they didn't want to share. They didn't want you looking at the drawings, kind of like, what are you doing? Well,
Yeah.
I'm not trying to take your job. I just want to understand what's going on.
Yeah,
But
absolutely. So that brings up an interesting thought, because the clarity is huge. But how do you maybe balance the sharing information and then the feeling of there's competition coming in and you got to protect the secret sauce and people not wanting to share? How do you work through that?
yeah, that's the thing. People don't want to share everything. Like it's hard to get models from like engineers or that. But also, to be honest, with you, engineers don't have to draw accurate models as such. So I can understand them not wanting to share because they're going to share it with me, and then I'm going to say this is all wrong, but it's not really wrong. He's just supposed to give me my sizes and everything for what I should do. I share whatever information I have for making things better with other people. I just feel like communication on a daily basis and always being kind of available. And I think, also to admit when you're wrong is important,
Mm.
because we don't, I like to say my detailing is not 100%, but I'm hoping it's like 99% in around there. It should be 100, right? But everybody's going to make a mistake here and there. So I think
Yeah.
I think once you're honest with your mistakes and one of my main clients right now are very good. In the past, I have made some mistakes, and there was thoughts on who made the mistake, but they had a project manager and me, and whatever happened between the both of us, the beams ended up 6 foot too short on a crane day, and that was a big deal, you know.
Yeah.
I'll have nightmares tonight just talking about it. That was a big deal, but we figured it out, and you know, in the end, I actually took most of the blame, but I don't think the dimensions were passed over to me. But anyway, I should have picked it up in the end. And, you know, I went over and met the boss, and he was okay. He's like, look, we fixed it. We got it done. Let's try not to make this mistake again the next time. So, you know what? Part of that was communication again, because the project manager was a new project manager. And he wasn't used to dealing with me. I wasn't used to dealing with him. We probably didn't have as good communication between the two of us. And that, again, you know, is the problem there, right? And then when beams are too long, it's one thing. When they're too short, it's a whole other thing. When you have a crane, you're paying for a crane day. I know when I was on site, we need to set so many pieces, you know, work through lunch, all this. So, you know, crane days are expensive and important. You know, if you have a one crane day, if you lose 4 hours, you're probably going to have to pay for a crane for another day.
Right.
And to be fair to him, I offered to cover the expense from the job. I'm not sure if the job would have covered the expense, but he was like, no, let's just get it right the next time.
Yeah, I think that clarity and the being willing to own mistake, those
You
are
have to, yeah.
those
I
are
mean, there's
two
no
huge,
yeah.
easier
You can't
said than
let on
done
like you don't
sometimes.
get anything wrong.
Yeah, exactly. And it really just totally undermines trust if you don't have either of those. So those are two critical components.
Yeah, because if you admit it this time, you can get past it, and then the next time you've learned your lesson, hopefully, and then the next time it won't happen.
Right.
So, yeah, no, the trust thing is a bigger issue, right? That's a bigger issue.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we start to kind of land the plane on the conversation, a couple rapid fire questions for you. First, what does modeling the future, what does that mean and look like to you?
Modeling future. I guess it looks like at some point in the next 5 or 6 years, we might guess that, for me anyway, the advanced steel will probably be in Revit. There is talk of engineers sharing. So the Autodesk goal is to have Revit for engineers. The engineers will design the model, then they'll give it to the detailer. But then also, most engineers don't want to do the modeling. They want to do the engineering, and they want the detailers to do the modeling and the details. So I don't know how that'll work when it comes to it, but I guess we'll just roll with the punches. I guess I'll probably end up having there'll surely be an overlap, so I'll probably use Advanced Steel for a year or two after they've managed to get it into Revit. There's also talk of AI being used in the next 10 years to populate drawing dimensions and things like that. And will that surpass what Revit might be doing? I don't know. I mean, for now, it's sharing everything as much as I can, creating nice models, creating nice renderings for myself and for my clients. And communication is key, I guess.
What is innovation? What does that mean to you?
You know, ever since the start, when I started, me and another guy in England, nobody else seemed to be rendering their advanced steel models. So we were like trying to figure out how to do it in Fusion. I would do it one way, and then he'd say, no, export it to an IGEST file. And then we figured it out between us, and then everybody else was doing it. And then, you know, it's just to try and keep ahead of the game. I try and do some augmented reality. It's of benefit to some clients visually, but again, I like to use whatever technology is available to me so that I don't get left behind. You know, I've convinced the fabricator here, he used to be using all 2D drawings. And, you know, this part of the reason I'm here, he wanted me to help him get to speed. He's now he got plasma machine, he has a lightning rail table, he got a beam line. Now he's looking at getting a pipe cutter. And, you know, now he's using all 3D files.
Yeah,
so
nice.
And once he gets the pipe cutter, I mean, once he gets that, he's kind of set up then, you know. And it's a whole new shop here, to be honest, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially in New York, people have smaller shops, you know, they don't have the big space people have when you get out of the cities.
Mm-hmm.
So space is kind of tight. So, he had to put the beam line at the back of the yard, and then he built over it. So he didn't actually put it in the building. He built a building around it.
Yeah.
But
That's
and it
works. You got to
opens
get
up.
creative sometimes. Yeah.
And so for summertime, then you can have it open air.
Yeah. Very
It's
cool.
it's pretty cool. So again, that's like innovation for him. But I just got to keep up to the software.
I like it. How do people find out more information about what you got going on and connect with you?
It's a good way to connect me on LinkedIn, really. My YouTube channel, people can watch that. It's like AirCAD. So I'm from Ireland. So Air is like a kind of an Irish thing for companies. So AirCAD. You can just type in YouTube AirCAD. But it's been pretty successful, to be honest. I would consider, because my wife laughs, but then I'll say to her, I put a video yesterday, it's 200 views, and she's like, "What?" So some videos are interesting. LinkedIn is probably the best way to contact me, because I go on there quite a bit. It's good for connecting with people.
Yeah.
And I'll be at the NASCC again next year if anyone wants to meet me there.
Perfect. Well, final question for you. If I could give you all power and you could snap your fingers and innovate one thing in the industry, what would you pick to innovate?
That's a tough question. I don't know. You have to stump at me now.
That's why I
don't know.
saved
I
this
guess,
one for the end.
Yeah. Save the best for the end.
That's right.
I mean, well, I don't know if it's innovation as such, but I think it would be good if they were able to figure out how to get between Advanced Steel and Revit without actually putting the two together and keep them both separate. Because I don't really believe a detailing software needs to be in Revit, but I guess that's the goal. But also, I mean, it would be nice if everyone was using the same software, I guess. But it's never going to be easy to go between softwares, right? Because they're all different companies.
I think you did the interoperability. You would snap your fingers and have kind of the
exactly.
interoperability
That's
between
the
all
word.
softwares.
And you know what's funny? I did a webinar on that a couple of years ago in interoperability, but
nice.
that's out there somewhere. Yeah, you're
still
right.
Still there.
Yeah.
We've gotten closer. We've taken steps closer to that, but
Yeah,
there's still a long way to go for sure.
And that's good. I mean, Rome wasn't built in a day either. A lot of stuff that seems simple to people in Advanced Steel. I was talking to some of the GRAITEC guys, and they were saying some of that stuff is extremely difficult to put into Revit. So, it's going to be a process before we get to that point. But, I just enjoy modeling in Advanced Steel. That's kind of the fun part of the day. And then you do the piece details. That's like work. Or outputting your elevations and stuff. That's fun as well. In Tekla and Revit, it's not as much fun to create models, in my opinion, for me.
Yeah.
So, I'd like to leave things. Not that I want to leave things the way they are, because change is good too. So.
Yeah, but enjoy the fun when you can find it in your job.
I know. I enjoy
all
it.
For that.
I enjoy Lego. I enjoy those kind of things with my kids. I enjoy it even without my kids. I enjoy Lego. So. Yeah. I like building, so I'm basically just doing that on the computer. So it's enjoyable for me. It makes a change from 15 years of carrying 70 pounds of tools into the city on my lunch every day on the train for an hour, and then getting the subway and then come home. So now I get to be lazy and sit in a chair all day.
There you go.
That's a big problem too.
There's pros and cons,
Yeah, exactly.
Adrian, thanks so much for taking the time and coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much. It was nice to talk to you.